Please welcome Joe Schmit.
Because I'm a sportscaster in Minnesota, I cover every game the Minnesota Vikings play. So that also means that this year on Super Bowl Sunday, if that's when your event is, unfortunately, I will be available. Was that too soon? Oh, sorry. Those Packer fans always like that one. I love doing TV. I love covering sports, but I found my passion a few years ago, and that was studying and researching people who make an impact on this world. And through the research, we found out that we make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. And the impact that we have is real, it's powerful, it's profound, it's contagious, and it can last a long, long time. I covered a track coach at the University of Minnesota by the name of Roy Griak. Roy had a very successful career in his 30-plus years with the Gophers. He coached Big Ten champs and national champs. He even coached a few Olympians. Well, Roy retired, and when he was in his upper 80s and he was ready to pass on, I started reading the tributes to Roy on his Caring Bridge site and on Facebook. And they were from all the athletes who won these Big Ten championships and national championships. And not one of them said, "I would have never made it to the Olympics without you. Remember that big meet we won in Iowa? Thank you for making me a Big Ten champion." Not one of them. They all said things like, "Thank you for making me a better man. I'm a better parent because Roy Griak was in my life. I just did the biggest business deal of my life using Roy Griak 101. And I started thinking, too many times in our lives we chase things like awards and trophies and titles and money and fame. But when it's all said and done, what really matters is, did you make an impact on your world? Roy Griak lived a life of significance, not because of the trophies he won, but because of the impact that he had on this world. I contacted several of his athletes and I said, if you had to name the most influential people in your life, would Roy Griak be on the list? And they all said yes. And then I took it a step further. I said, if you could build a monument, your own Mount Rushmore of influence, to the 4 people who had the biggest impact on your life, would Roy be on that list? And they all said yes. That's the kind of impact you want to have. I was doing a presentation for the Minnesota Corrections Association, and I see a couple of my friends in the audience here today. And I made them fill out their Mount Rushmore of influence. And a guy by the name of Mark Magnuson, who's a guard, came up to me and he said, "You know, Joe, my brother, Tim, is on my Mount Rushmore. But he wasn't on my Mount Rushmore until he passed away." And I said, "Explain." He said, "Tim and I were brothers. We grew up in northern Minnesota. We played a lot of sports together. We were both pretty good athletes. But he was just a brother, and I had other brothers and sisters. There was no reason to have him on my Mount Rushmore. But when he died, that's when he went on my Mount Rushmore." Tim had moved to Columbus, Ohio. And when they got an NHL team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, Tim wanted a job with the organization because he loved hockey. He was from northern Minnesota. He got a job. He was the elevator operator for the team, the management, their families, and the kids. But he wasn't a guy who just pushed buttons. He was a guy who figured out how to push people's buttons in a good way. He found out everybody's birthday. He got to know the kids. He got to know everybody's names. He made connections with everybody on that team. Well, unfortunately, Tim was diagnosed with ALS. And at his funeral, Mark said he was sitting there, and all of a sudden a bus pulled up. It was the Columbus Blue Jackets. The team had gone a half hour out of their way on the way to the airport to come and salute the guy who ran the elevator for the team. And Tim said, "I understood what impact was all about because of the connections that he made, because he cared about others." But he said, "Joe, I got goosebumps when you told your story. Remember when I told you that Tim was a pretty good athlete? He ran track in college. His coach was Roy Griak." We make our biggest impressions when we're not trying to be impressive. And we all need to be more aware and intentional with the impact we have. I'd love to work with your group and teach you how we can all make a bigger impact on the world, how it can help the company culture, how it can help you be more productive, and how maybe someday you can be on somebody else's Mount Rushmore of influence yourself. Thank you very much.